Hello, happy Halloween, and welcome to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. In honor of it being the month of ghouls and ghosts and spooky happenings, I have decided to pick, well, a spooky game. This is my first Let's Play, so I wanted to go with a game I'm very familiar with, and I've played through a few times, so hopefully this will be a good Let's Play. If you have any comments, tips on how I can improve this, just leave it in the comments section, of course, and I'll make sure to go through it. You will notice a little watermark at the top of the screen there. Basically, I have had trouble finding a good and affordable, sadly, video capture program to record this game with, so I've had to resort to using a free program that comes with a watermark. Hopefully I can take care of that soon, though, and get rid of that. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a first-person shooter RPG hybrid along the lines of Deus Ex, System Shock games, and the Elder Scrolls games. So what that means is it has a variety of ways you can play through it, fairly open-ended. The only thing you really have to do in a certain order is the main quest in the game. But outside of that, you can kind of go more or less wherever you want to, do whatever you want, in whatever way you want to do it. If you want to be a combat monkey, go right ahead. Stealthy, talky, or any combination of them, of course, or anything else you can possibly think of. The game was actually made by a company called Troika Games back in 2004. They released another very good RPG, Arcanum, that I may do sometime down the line as well. Sadly, Troika Games is now defunct. This game was kind of their last little shot, and I really kind of blame a combination of two factors and why it didn't do as well as it could have done. One is it was released in a somewhat buggy state, but fortunately a lot of the fan-made patches, since it's developed a pretty big cult following over the years, have eliminated most, if not all, of the real problems with it. Two is it was released November 16th, 2004. For those of you not familiar with that day is the same day that Half-Life 2 came out. So, you release this game the same day as Half-Life 2, you're probably not going to see super awesome sales. The interesting thing about that is, though, this game makes use of the Source engine. It's the first third-party game to make use of it. So, the same day you have two games both using the Source engine. One of them is, one of the most eagerly anticipated sequels of all time, at least for the PC. So, yeah, there you go. It's based off a tabletop RPG setting called Vampire the Masquerade, go figure, which was made by White Wolf Games back in the 90s. The game line is now defunct. They ended it and their entire old World of Darkness line and replaced it with a new World of Darkness. So there is still a vampire game out there, but it's fairly different from this one. They put a lot of new twist on it, put some stuff, put a lot of things on its head and everything. So, there's that. Was never much into the Vampire the Masquerade tabletop game when it first came out for, a variety of reasons. But now I kind of regret that. After playing this game when it first came out and playing through it several times over the years, I've really come to enjoy the setting, and, I kind of see the potential there for some good storytelling. So, without further ado, let us look at making a new character. Now, as you see, there are two ways you can make a character. One is to answer a series of questions, kind of like what you would do in the Elder Scrolls games, and it, throws something together for you based off your responses. Or, what I prefer to do, go directly to the character sheet and just make whatever you feel is appropriate. So we're going to do that. Now, you'll see here, there are a variety of what are called vampire clans to choose from. These are kind of like if you were playing a fantasy game, these are the different races that are available. Elf, dwarf, troll, yada yada yada. They each have their own little kind of quirks and bonuses and special abilities and things of that nature. Now, you can take any of these and build them for any type of play style, of course, but some of them lend themselves better to others. You can also pick your gender. It doesn't have a huge effect on the gameplay, but it can affect certain dialogue options with different NPCs. I will be making a female character. And finally, this is something that the patches added. It's what's called your history. And these are just like little, specialties that you can add to your clan that give you additional bonuses and minuses and little quirks and things like that. I will not be picking any of these simply because of the fact that I'm going to try and do just a, straight original, kind of build that you would see on the initial release. I do have the latest patches, like I said, though, of course, but that's mostly just to iron out any bugs and quirks that the game may run into. So, the different clans here, we have Brujah. Brujah are passionate idealists and rebels, more likely to fight for their rights than write protest songs. Basically, they're rebels with a cause. They find themselves getting in trouble for whatever they believe in. They're a pretty interesting clan. I really like them, and a lot of the characters in the game will be Brujah that you see. Some are definitely nicer than others to you, but they're pretty interesting. Next, we have Gangrel. They're the flip side of that coin with the Brujah. They are rebels without a cause. They have gotten in touch with their animalistic, kind of beastly nature. So, they like to howl at the moon and, get into trouble and start fights and stuff like that. At least the ones that I'm familiar with. I'm sure, obviously, there are other Gangrel out there that aren't at all like that, but those are the ones I'm familiar with. We've also got Malkavian. These are just fun to play. They are the crazy clan, and I am not kidding when I say they are crazy. That is their sort of weird little quirk or curse or whatever you want to call it. Let's see here. Malkavians are known as lunatics because of their ability to hear voices of insight, in quotation marks, and should subject others to their insanity through their dementation. They are literally, every single one of them, without a doubt, utterly insane to some degree. It's more pronounced in other characters than, maybe some others, but they're all pretty crazy. And because of that, you see cool little things in the game that you normally wouldn't see with a more sane character. Because, they're crazy, but they actually are seeing things. You can even do things like, well, I won't spoil it, but you can talk to inanimate objects and other weird little things. We will sadly not be playing as Malkavian just because I'm trying to do a spoiler-free playthrough of the storyline for those that have never played the game before, and some of the Malkav dialogue options give away future things. I don't want to do that. Next we have a very beautiful creature here, the Nosferatu. Obviously, their curse is they are hideous, skulking, and powerful. Even in a world of monsters, the Nosferatu stand out. That is their curse. They are covered in boils and sores and tumors and have fangs that just fill out their mouth and crazy talons for hands. They are hideous. Because of that, they are terrible in social settings. So if you're wanting to do some sort of a talkie playthrough, do not pick Nosferatu. You'll walk into a room, talk to a simple NPC, and they'll suddenly freak out and pull a gun on you. It's not pretty if you're wanting to do that. However, they're great in combat, right up there with Brujah and Gangrel, who are also combat-oriented clans, and pretty much the best when it comes to a stealth playthrough. If you're wanting to play a thief character, yeah, Nosferatu is the way to go. Next we have Toreador, or as I like to think of them, the, what's it called again? The Breaking Dawn vampires, the Twilight vampires, the Sparkly vampires. They're sensitive and emotional. They're artists, and no one understands them, and God, do I find them annoying. I do not like Toreador. They're great if you're wanting a talkie playthrough, of course, but as you'll see with some of the Toreador in the game, they are friggin' annoying to talk to, so I do not like Toreador. Next we have Tremere. They are really cool. They are the wizards of the game, basically. They have learned a type of magic called, let's see if they have it here, thaumaturgy, whatever. Blood magic. So they have learned to manipulate their own blood and the blood of others to do all sorts of crazy cool little spells. I won't be sadly playing as them this run through, but they are very cool to play as. And then finally, we have the Ventru. This is the clan I'll be playing as. I really like to play RPGs as talky as possible. I just really enjoy that for some reason. And the Ventru, they are the talkiest of the clans. While the Toreador are emotional and sensitive, these guys are bastards that are awesome at manipulating people. So they often find themselves in positions of leadership in vampire society, and there's a lot of resentment amongst the other clans, I guess, it seems, because of that. But if you want to be a son of a bitch that's good at, talking to people, that's the Ventrue. I love these guys. So let's continue on here. I have a name up here, Eric. That's my typical male character name. I will be changing that since I'm playing a woman. I will be Erin. Alright, so quick explanation of your character sheet here. Humanity. That is basically how in touch you are with either your humanity, of course, or the beast within. The lower it gets, the more likely you are to frenzy and literally just start tearing into stuff. Ventrue frenzying is pretty pointless because they're not going to be really doing too much, but it can definitely piss off NPCs when you're not trying to do that. Masquerade here is how well how good you are at hiding the fact you're a vampire and hiding vampire society from the muggles, basically. Humanity out there. Basically, vampires are afraid that if humanity knew about vampires and what they were really capable of, we would rise up and stake them all and burn them, and yada yada yada. So you want to keep that as high as possible. It is kind of cool. As it gets lower, you start seeing things like vampire hunters show up randomly and just try to kill you. So it can be kind of fun if it gets low, but you really don't want to do that. Here are the attributes. These are your basically physical, mental, and social stats. Strength is how good you are in melee combat, whether it's with your fist or sword. Dexterity covers lockpicking and sneaking, not your defense like in minigames. Stamina is how tough you are. Charisma, how good you are at manipulating people. Manipulation, you think that'd be for manipulating people. No, that covers haggle. What I feel is the most useless skill in the game. That covers only, or not skill, feat. That covers only buying and selling stuff. And by the end of the game, you're dripping with so much money it doesn't matter. Next we have appearance. That handles really only seduction, but that can be pretty effective in the right situations. We have perception. That handles ranged combat, guns, crossbows, things of that nature. I don't really mess with it much. It also handles inspection. That puts like a little glowy thing around certain items that you might not normally see. But if you've got a good eye as a player, it's not going to matter. And of course, if you're using an FAQ or something, you're going to know where it is anyway, the items. So, though ranged combat does come in handy later on in one particular boss fight. I'll go into that later. We have intelligence here that handles research and intimidate. Research basically is used for reading books in the game that up your stats for free. So research is super handy. Intimidate is browbeating people, so that can be pretty handy at times too if you don't want to be manipulative or anything. Finally, we have wits. That handles defense and hacking. You think hacking would tie into intelligence, but no, that is your wits, kind of your wisdom stat basically. Defense obviously is how hard it is to hit you, so that's very handy to have. Whether you want to go combat or not, you're going to get into combat at some point, no matter what, so you might as well have good defense. Now, I'll get into this here real quick. These are called feats. These are basically the combined stats of your attributes and abilities. It's pretty simple. The higher your feat, the better it is for that particular ability. So higher hacking, better you are at hacking. Simple stuff. Now these abilities, these are what most other games would call skills. They're split up into three categories, like your attributes. We have talents, skills, and knowledges. Talents is kind of physical stuff. Skills are kind of mental stuff, and then knowledges are intelligence stuff, basically. That makes sense. Brawl, that handles your unarmed combat. Dodge, your defense. Intimidation, your intimidate. Surprise. Subterfuge, that handles your seduction. Firearms, that handles only ranged combat. Melee, that handles melee weapons. Sledgehammers, swords, pipes, stuff like that. Security, lockpicking. Stealth handles sneaking. Of course. Computer handles hacking. Now, the thing about hacking is you will find most passwords to computers in the game on your own, searching around, whatever, but sometimes you will come across a computer that you just cannot find a password for, so hacking can be very useful. Next we have finance, that handles haggle. Hey, guess who's not getting any dots? We have investigation, that handles inspection, also not getting any dots. And finally we have scholarship, that handles two things. It's a very, very useful knowledge. It handles research, so those books I was talking about, and persuasion, so manipulating people. So for a Ventrue, very handy. Finally, we have disciplines. These are blood-powered vampire superpowers, basically. They're special supernatural abilities that use your own blood supply to power. Dominate is simple mind control. Fortitude, it makes you tougher in combat. And then finally, Presence, that manipulates whole groups of enemies when you're in combat and whatnot. It can make them afraid of you, lower their combat effectiveness, yada yada yada. So let's spend our points. I'm going to put a dot, in Charisma and Manipulation, and then put a dot in Wits here. That's pretty handy to have. Then we're going to put in a couple of dots, one here for Dodge, and Subterfuge. Next we have our skills. Melee, simple as that. Put a couple of one dot in Computer and a couple of dots in Scholarship. Very handy ability, or knowledge, I mean. Finally, we are going to put one into Dominate. Alright, so that's our character. That's Aaron, the Venture Vampire. I will see you next video when we will watch the opening cinema. I will mostly be keeping my mouth shut because there is a lot of dialogue. I don't want to interrupt it. Well, thank you very much, and see you in part